the details. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, guys. A Chinese researcher at the University of Michigan and her boyfriend have been accused of smuggling a biological pathogen into the United States that can cause devastating diseases in crops. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, "This case is a sobering reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. I commend the FBI Detroit Division and our partners at CBP for stopping this biological threat before it could do real damage." Here's a photo of that fungus that was discovered at the Detroit airport in July. The small clumps of red plant material were discovered in these 4 plastic baggies tucked into a wad of tissues. According to court documents, the 34-year-old Chinese boyfriend intentionally hid the samples in his backpack because he knew there were restrictions on importing them. He had hoped to continue his research at the University of Michigan lab. In a statement, the school says, quote, "It is important to note that the university has received no funding from the Chinese government in relation to research conducted by the accused individuals. We have and will continue to cooperate with federal law enforcement in its ongoing investigation and prosecution." And in Arizona, the state's Democratic governor is under fire for vetoing legislation that would have barred the Chinese government from owning land in the state. Arizona is home to a number of military bases, including Luke Air Force Base, home to fighter squadrons, including the primary training center for the F-35 stealth fighter jet. The Republican Senate Majority Leader in Arizona said, quote, "It is utterly insane that Arizona's top elected official would rather be an obstructionist against safeguarding our citizens from threats than sign legislation giving our state a fighting chance at proactively preventing attacks. Hobbs is a total disgrace." As we just saw in Russia, after Ukraine unleashed those drones against Russian air bases, destroying expensive bombers, military experts have long warned of China being able to do the same thing right here in the U.S., guys.
Hey, Lucas, do you know if...
Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Why this beat so crazy?
We will make America proud again. And you try to kill our We will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Oh boy, here they go again with this crap. You know, they see our president is back. They trying to bring COVID-42 back in here. You know, trying to start it up. They down in the lab trying to send their little people in. Them patriots been calling it out, them conspiracy theories. I've been trying to tell you. You know, they say stop it, stop the flights. The hell with the student visas. They coming in, they trying to kill the population. The food supply. They know them American patriots will eat anything that look good, especially if it got some kind of sauce on it, some kind of glaze or some kind of, you know, cheese on it. You know, if it look good and come with a dessert, we taking it down. Them patriots been calling it out. They say, look, China. The Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. They say, stop this, stop that. The hell, throw them student visas out. We don't know. We can't trust nobody now. Trump's back. They trying to bring in COVID-42, COVID-39, COVID-52. We not doing it now. Yeah, your butt got to be walked back, sent back, shook down, frisk. You're not allowed to come in. Get his backpack, get his laptop, shake him down, put him in handcuffs. You got to put your hands behind your back. Y'all know Rick gonna come on here and act a fool. I'm gonna call it for what it is. God dog it, the FBI. Here we go. China. Them patriots, them conspiracy theorists, we've been talking about it. They've been calling it out. They call us crazy. But here it come again. It ain't gonna stop either. We got to put our foot down. Yeah. Another big attack. People are plotting. People are plotting. Yeah. Foreign agents, the spies. Yeah. Them patriots say to hell with them visas. Stop them flights. Stop people from coming in. Because we don't know who to trust. People got to be sent back. Go back where you come from. If you ain't gonna act right, if you ain't gonna do right, the hell with the murderers, the rapists, the drug dealers, we got to send people back. Yeah. You coming in from China, South Korea, all over the, look, hold on, wait right there. We got to shake you down. He done got caught with fungi and all the bags, and you know, if this touched the food supply, it shut down half of your body. You done caught a stroke. You got kidney failure, and your toes done curled up, and all kind of stuff. This is bad. Yeah, you know they down in that lab. I'm telling y'all, man, it is bad. And then when Trump calls it out and say this and that, you know, they call the president racist. You know, they call conspiracy theorists, they call conservatives racist. Yeah. Yeah. We said it's down there in the lab. They making it. They making it down there. They creating it. Oh, you're racist. Why would you say such a thing? And here they come. Here they come across trying to get in with the poison, with the toxics. Here we go, y'all. The FBI is on it. Here we go. Y'all know Rick gonna come on here and crack jokes and act a fool. You can't take a good laugh or some good time. I don't know what to tell you. Life is too short now. Life is too short for y'all not to be smiling and laughing and having a good time with your boy Rick. But this is a disgrace, man. You know, but we know about the CCP. We know about the Chinese Communist Party. We know about the China. Them pages been talking about them student visas, about them flights, about stopping this, about stopping that. These checks, I'm telling you. People laughing and going to the bank. Some of these people know what's going on, but they getting, you know, relief off the back end. People got to be held accountable, man. Thrown in jail, sent back.
The FBI now says 2 Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a potentially toxic fungus that could ravage crops in the United States. They were trying to bring those to the homeland. Now, one of those suspects is in custody, will appear in a federal courtroom tomorrow at 1 p.m. The other is in China after he was denied entry into the U.S. while trying to smuggle in that biological pathogen last year. Really interesting details coming up. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany. Here's my co-host, Emily Compagno. Also joining us, Laura Trump, host of My View with Laura Trump. Kayleigh McGee-White, Fox News contributor, and Ari Fleischer, Fox News contributor and former White House press secretary. Well, the FBI warning Americans that our food supply may be the target of attacks from China. Here's
our food supply always. Tell you, I'm telling you, them pictures. If it come with a dessert, if it got a little bit of drizzle on it, a little, you know, extra cheese, extra sauce, you know, if it's a little bit, you know, a little bit sweet, spicy, a little tangy, you know, them Patriots, we're gonna knock it down. We're gonna knock it back. Yeah. Yeah. And and don't let it be seasoned just right. Oh, and if it's seasoned just right, all them Patriots is eating it good, eating it, cleaning the plate. I see some of them people be licking the plate. Some of y'all be licking the plate. Plate cleaners. Plate cleaners.
a photo of the fungus found at the Detroit airport last year. It was found in 4 plastic baggies. It was stashed into wads of tissue paper. And authorities say that the toxins cause, quote, vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in both humans and livestock. What were they doing?
I told y'all, man, shut down your whole liver. You know, we don't know what to believe anymore, man. They got all kind of stuff out. They say Americans consume months worth of plastic every single day. You know, they say you can't drink the water from plastic bottles no more. You can't put nothing in the microwave. I don't know what to believe now. You know, studies are showing that even vegetarians are getting sick from some of the foods, some of the stuff. I say, man, you know, And they've been telling us, put that bacon down. Put that bacon down. You better not pick up that bacon. Put that bacon down. Put that pork down. Don't know what to believe anymore.
Doing with this? Why were they trying to bring this into our country? Now, according to a U.S. Attorney's office in Michigan, the 34-year-old Chinese researcher who works at the University of Michigan intentionally hid the samples in his backpack because he knew that the restrictions on importing them existed. The professor claims he had hoped to do further research on the fungus at his University of Michigan lab. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, "This case is sobering. It's a reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. Smuggling a known agro-terrorism agent into the U.S. is not just a violation of law, it's a direct threat to national security." Now, the details here are chilling. I have the complaint here. Carrier Bond pulled out some really interesting details, Emily. So listen to this. Juan is the woman. There was the boyfriend and girlfriend. So Juan's the woman. The FBI has evidence that she had done this before. She had worked with someone else to smuggle in the same pathogen. She gave the other person detailed instructions on how to smuggle it in a book and said there are usually no problems. Rest assured, I have mailed these before. So you wonder how many times she's done this. And then she lied on her visa, saying she was studying a topic distinct from the use of this pathogen. This raises all kinds of questions about subterfuge and frequency.
Absolutely. Look, this is absolutely frightening. And most frightening is how under the prior administration, this stuff was just swept under the rug in terms of the perceived and actual threat. Now, we know under the Trump first administration that Secretary of State Pompeo deployed a maximum pressure against China in all of those arenas. He saw and articulated that the threats to our intellectual property, our college campuses, our physical military bases, and so much more was profound and real. And if you look at the DOJ history of prosecutions and arrests, it was sky high because they were deploying resources toward this articulated threat. Cut to the Biden administration, and I guess everything's awesome. And now we're seeing the fruits of that investment by the CCP. This is on the heels as well of University of Michigan, other students that were arrested and prosecuted for counter surveillance, and so much more. So look, this dovetails in with the topic as well of the visas and the college campuses of the students, right? And over 27% of foreign students being from China. And there's the direct correlation is obviously not China related. It's CCP related. And the fact that this administration now sees this for what it is and is dedicated to preventing this kind of thing is so relieving. But we have to know that the seeds have been planted and really buried deep under the prior administration. So for me, this is one in what is likely the tip of the iceberg.
I think you're right. You know, sadly, Laura, when you look at this woman's background, she got Chinese government funding for her work. And not only that, some of the information that she had on her said there was membership and loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, I think the overall takeaway is something that we've heard Donald Trump talk about for a long time. I think, you look at China, you look at the CCP. This is our greatest geopolitical foe, I think, in the entire world. I did an interview for my show this weekend with John Radcliffe, the CIA director. He said they are specifically looking and putting so much investment in China because they are such a big threat. When I look at this and I think about what it says there, that it could take out livestock, that it could take out all of our food supply, it could cause reproductive issues for humans. This is an overall push, I believe, from the CCP to try and take down the United States of America. There's a book called The 100-Year Marathon, and it details the fact.
Like we've been saying, some conspiracy theorists, some conservatives dragged through the mud. They talk about them student visas, them flights,
that China has in the background
CCP
been waging this kind of silent war that most Americans don't know about to try and usurp America as a superpower of the world. This seems like another step in that direction. Look at TikTok in China. These kids are all learning how to play, the cello, the violin. They're doing things to improve themselves. Look at it in America. We're teaching our kids to twerk. Look at the education between China.
What she just said, spot on. We got to come on here and just be real. You know, it's a disgrace what's going on in America. They over there learning how to play to do this and that. We over here learning how to eat hot chips and twerk.
China and America, they have surpassed our American students long ago. When you look at this, you look at China buying up farmland, and then I look at something like this, to me it says this is another step in China trying to take over America as a superpower.
Yeah, and John Radcliffe, the perfect person to talk to, he was a part of the first Trump administration when they were taking on Confucius Institutes on college campuses. Right. So they've been on this for a long time. You know, Ari, the most chilling detail of this 25-page complaint is this. There's an interesting WeChat exchange between this young woman and her boyfriend. 1 week before she smuggled the pathogen into the United States, or he did, he told his girlfriend, once this is done, everything else will be easy. To which she replied, my seedlings are not usable yet. You could read that any which way, but it's a chilling way to read it when you compound it with the symptoms that Laura mentioned, reproductive birth defects, if this got out into the U.S. population.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more from law enforcement when they get into the details of this today. How deep does this go? What do they suspect? But what this takes me back to is after September 11th. After September 11th, the CIA concluded, and they said to the White House, that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when there will be a second attack. And the second attack that we feared the most and prepared the hardest to prevent was a biological attack, because that can cause the greatest destruction. And don't forget, we're dealing with a China that regularly hacks and infiltrates America's industrial infrastructure. They have made it a state business to get inside American systems, to disrupt them, to steal from us, to take, to harm us, not to mention what they've done with fentanyl to poison us. This is the China we deal with. And if this does turn out to be, if the investigators say, if the Department of Justice reveals that this does appear to be tied to a biological attack, I don't know what the next step has to be with China, because that's an act of war. And we've got to be very cautious. I don't want to overplay this, but as you pointed out, Emily, this is frightening. If they're going to biologically mess with our food supply, we cannot sit back and take this.
No, you have to act, and I'm confident the commander-in-chief would act in an appropriate fashion. You know, Kaylee, when you look at this and the events of this week, and then you look at the policies of the Trump administration, President Trump said, I want to look at visas on college campuses with these individuals who are protesting. And then we get that horrific attack where 8 Jewish men and women are burned because of their religion, a guy who overstayed his visa. Then you had Marco Rubio Thursday say, we're going to look at China visas too. And then you get this. I mean, they've been ahead of the ballgame here. And if there's not a footnote to substantiate the policies they're making, if there's not a better one than this, I don't know what will convince people.
Well, and Ari asked what the next step is. The next step is to revoke every single Chinese student visa. Keep in mind, this is the second national security-related incident involving a Chinese visa that we've learned about this week. There was another report earlier this week that a student in the University of Michigan, another Chinese national, fled the country after illegally voting in Michigan's election in November. Yeah. And he apparently voluntarily released his passport before doing so. But this is a pattern of behavior, and we need to keep in mind that China has a law requiring every single one of its citizens to spy on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. You see this with some of the details that were revealed in this affidavit, where this researcher was still receiving funding from the Chinese Communist Party to conduct research in the United States. And they are exploiting our visa program to do that. We are essentially holding open the front door to allow our greatest adversary to flood our country with people who are spying on us and undermining our national security. And you mentioned subterfuge, but what the Chinese government does in public is just as revealing. Let's remember last year, a Chinese state-run media outlet ran an editorial endorsing the pro-Hamas protests on U.S. college campuses because they know that if they target our higher education system and if they target my generation in particular, they can create division in our country, and that is exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, without question.